All right, Coyotes fans, welcome into the first episode of the Coyotes Hot Stove for the 2021 season. I'm Luke Lapinski. We are joined by Paul Bissonnette, Bob Heethuis, Lyndsey Fry, Tyson Nash, Matt McConnell. So this is like a legitimate roundtable here. How's everybody doing?
Great, Luke. Great.
We're a quarter of the way through the season, so we're going to do this every quarter. And the first quarter so far, actually, hold on. I got Lyndsey's background.
Oh yeah.
We're doing the Zoom call. We're going to have to address this first. Can you explain what's going on there?
All right. Well, I'm a newbie here, Luke. So I was watching the previous Hot Stoves, which is a million years ago, it feels like now. And these guys are all ripping on each other for their backgrounds. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make a background where they just rip on themselves. They rip on everyone but me. So that was the goal.
Better noob.
The rookie. Look at that. She's absolutely abusing us. I love it.
When's the dinner?
You're in the pot. Oh, and look at the heat dog. Heater. Fill us in, buddy.
Well, that proves two things, Nasher. That proves that I was young at one time, and also I had hair. And I had a 70s style afro, which was natural, by the way. That was not gotten at a salon. That was a natural hair.
Wow. Peter, I was gonna ask Tyson to teach me how to do my hair, but I might have to ask you now.
I don't think you want to. No.
Well,
Heater, I'm looking for a late model Ford. Can you help me out?
I'll be over in my leisure suit, and we'll be all set.
Peter, I told them before we started, you look like you're running for like British government in that picture. That's fantastic. All right, so let's start, guys. We're 14 games into the season by the time this airs, and 7 of them, 6 or 7, will have been against the St. Louis Blues. They're going to play 7 straight against St. Louis. So, Nasher, I'll start with you, and let's just kind of go around the horn. I mean, this is craziness to play the same team 7 straight times. It's been working out for the Coyotes, though.
Yeah, it has. And you go back even further, you go to Vegas. You got 4 against Vegas. Now you got 7 against the St. Louis Blues. I can't imagine when they found out that they were all that excited about it. But you're right, it has turned out to be pretty darn good. If they can finish off this series with the St. Louis Blues on a high note and continue maybe 3, 4, 5 in a row, who knows? That's going to mean a lot, really kind of a turning point for this group moving forward. Because then what happens when you play the Anaheims and the San Jose's and the LA Kings after you've just gone through what you've gone through? I think it's going to be big.
Maddie?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's been a great run. What I'm trying to figure out is, have they gotten over the hump? You know, like has the maturation really moved forward? Because these are tough opponents. They were pretty good against Vegas. They've been spectacular against the St. Louis Blues. So are we seeing finally the maturation out of the young core? It's been fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next few weeks.
Yeah, Lyndsey, I mean, you're the rookie. You step in here and you just get to see St. Louis and Vegas all season. That's how we're doing it this year.
Well, it helps me. It's less names I have to remember, so that's good. But no, it's been awesome. It's been fun hockey to watch. I think something that's been interesting for me to think about is, you know, usually you play a team 1, maybe 2 times back to back, and you know, you don't really have time to get to know the ins and outs of the team. But I think what we're seeing right now is just gritty hockey, because I mean, they know what St. Louis's power play is going to look like. They know what their kill is going to look like. And St. Louis knows the same when you play a team that many times back to back to back. So I think at this point, it really just comes down to work ethic, right? And I think we're seeing that in just the grittiness of the way the guys are playing. And it makes for a really fun game of hockey.
Biz, what do you think? What sort of impact do you think being in the bubble last season for the Coyotes had? I mean, playing Nashville, even though it wasn't technically a playoff series, it was a series, and then playing Colorado. Are you seeing the impact of that now this year?
I don't know. I guess looking back, the only thing that kind of pops out is how they left. You know, they got embarrassed a little bit, and you know, it didn't seem like the guys towards the end were having fun. Of course, losing's not fun at all. But this year, for the first time in a long time, it looks like there's just a lot of energy. Like even on the bench. It seems like, I don't know, maybe it's because they feel like there's not as much pressure, and it'd probably be a better question for the rest of the panel. Like maybe expectations weren't as high coming in this season as seasons past, where I just feel like guys have brought their work ethic. We've maybe seen them play one poor game, and aside from that, they just bring their work boots. As Lyndsey said, they're gritty. and they've been finding ways to win. And I think that sometimes like that levity and having fun and it being, bringing it back to the fact that it is a game sometimes does help guys play a little bit looser. And to me, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the guys play loose.
Yeah, Heater, what do you think about that? At least through the first 12 games, the Coyotes have played pretty good in 11 of them.
Well, they certainly have. And, you look at the core group, Maddie touched on it, and I would agree. I mean, I think it's experience and also confidence in these players. And I want to, walk a fine line here because I think it's been a great team effort. But you look a little inside of that and the group that everyone is counting on to lead this team, now they are in their third, fourth, fifth years, age 22 through turning 25. The Dvoraks, the Kellers, the Garlands, the Schmaltzes, and the Chykrins. Right now, that's the core group that's coming up with big plays and producing and leading the team at key moments. And so I think that, what we're seeing is the maturation of this group in front of our eyes so far in the early season. And they're starting to do things that we all hope that they would do and expect them to do.
Nasher, let's touch on one of those guys. How about Christian Dvorak, man? He continuously goes to the net this season. He's getting rewarded, in addition to the fact that he's also taking faceoffs and playing, he's got defensive responsibilities as a center.
Yeah, the guy is doing it all. And, I can't imagine that the Coyotes expected him to be, this good. Heater's talking about the maturation of all these players, and I couldn't agree more with him. But I think this is a guy that's even further along in his development, just how he goes about his business. He's so businesslike. He touches every area of the game for Rick Tocchet. He's a coach's dream. You look down the bench and you need a kill, he's your guy. You need a face-off, he's your guy. And right now, he's doing it as well offensively. What's he got? 8 points in the last 5 games. I think 5 or 6 of those have been goals and big goals as well. And that one the other night, that play he made the other night to Clayton Keller, absolutely stupid. So I'm excited what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Maddie, let's go on that too. I mean, that goal by Clayton Keller the other night, you don't score that goal and win that game against a team like St. Louis if you're not feeling good about yourselves as a team. And we've seen it in years past. Those goals have been scored against the Coyotes. It kind of feels different this year.
It does feel different. And, confidence, it's unbelievable. And Tyson and Biz, you guys know this, Lyndsey too. The fact that one play in a game can completely change the momentum. The fact that, 3 wins in 4 games at St. Louis can completely change the projection that we have in our minds now of this team is amazing. And you see it in Clayton Keller all the time. They got the nickname the short leash line. Now maybe it's the medium leash line, whatever. But Kells has shown me a few things in the last couple of weeks that I haven't necessarily seen. And it's not just in terms of scoring goals. It's what he's doing at all ends of the ice. And it's been impressive.
Yeah, Lyndsey, that line that Matt's talking about, I mean, there was thought maybe at first they wouldn't be out there very long if they couldn't play defense, but they have the puck all the time. And they have the puck in the other team's zone, so it doesn't really matter what your defense is like at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've been playing incredibly well, and I think just buzzing and clicking with each other. And, I think it took a little bit for Tocchet to kind of figure out where some of those guys were going to fit. I think Keller in particular trying to kind of figure out where he was going to best produce. And I think they've found it with this line. And it's been fun to watch. And I did want to comment on Devo because something that I think he's been doing really well that's kind of brought a lot of those other guys along is he is just like cool as a cucumber, right? Like the guy scores this incredible goals, makes incredible plays, and doesn't crack a smile. And he never lets the highs get him too high, and he never lets the lows get him too low. And I think that's something that has served as just a great example for some of the younger guys that need to bring more of that maturity to the game to be able to produce consistently, which is something that Coach Tocchet talks about all the time.
Yeah, he personifies the sign that is right behind Biz right now, the not a big deal sign. I mean, Dvorak scores after setting up Keller with 0.7 of a second regulation. He scores the winner in the shootout and skates back to the bench like, okay, what's next? I mean, Biz, a teammate like that's contagious, isn't it?
I think sometimes in the post-game interviews after he makes those plays, we'd like a little bit more of the highs. But, hey, he, as Lyndsey said, he's cool as a cucumber. As far as those high-end guys playing together, I would imagine before the game or at some point they were like, hey, we got to make this work because we know if we can click, it's going to be fun playing together. And, Nasher, you probably more know than anyone I was a fourth liner as well. Lyndsey, were you a high, fourth liner?
On the Olympic team, yeah.
Okay. Well, well, then I guess there, but like those high-end skill players, they want to play together. They don't want to play like with slugs like me. And they're able to make plays together, snap it around, and possess the puck as opposed to just dumping it in and chasing the thing. So far so good, and it's been very impressive to watch. And I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a first line really establish themselves, at least through a stretch here, as like a legitimate NHL first line.
Heeters, specifically on that first line, Connor Garland. I mean, you've been calling his games now for a few years, and it feels like each year he gets better. But the jump from last year when he led this team in goals to this year, it's you can't deny it. I mean, he looks like 3 times the player he was last year.
He does, Luke, and his progression has been outstanding. And the word that I think of when I watch Connor Garland play is relentless in all phases of his game. And I think, Keller and Schmaltz just kind of follow that lead. I mean, they're all 3 really good friends off the ice. They communicate a lot. I think that they're very happy to be put together. And, Keller and Schmaltz are so skilled and have had some problems with inconsistency. And they would maybe, agree with that. Certainly Rick Tocchet has talked about that. But then you have an example on that line like Connor Garland and what he does shift in and shift out from an effort standpoint, from a skill standpoint, and also going to the net, just doing everything possible to make the right plays. And it's contagious. And we're seeing all 3 of those players, play like Connor Garland, I think, during this stretch. And, it might be the short leash line, but right now it's diamond studded. There's no question about that.
Oh, I like that, Heater. I like diamond studded. I'm stealing that tomorrow for the broadcast.
No doubt.
Sure. One of the things that's been remarkable about this start is for a good chunk of it, they've played without Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And the guy that has really stepped up, I know it's not just one guy, but man, Jacob Chychrun seems to have taken his game to a whole new level too, providing offense, but also essentially being the number 1 defenseman on this team.
Yeah, and I think that's important. It's kind of, we talk about it all the time. It's like a domino effect. Now when Oliver Ekman-Larsson comes back, I mean, that's going to be a huge boost. But now you're looking as the opposition and you're coming in and you're like, okay, who do we need to shut down? Do we need to shut down Oliver Ekman-Larsson or do we need to shut down Jacob Chychrun? So the matchup becomes that much tougher, and it goes up front as well. I think the biggest thing that line has done for Rick Tocchet's group is caused that much more confusion, because now they've solidified themselves as, okay, they're the number 1 unit. They're going to draw Ryan O'Reilly. Well, they also have a second line in Lawson Krause, Dvorak, and Pitlick. How do you shut that line down? So they get the lesser lights of the line matchups, which are so huge for a guy like Dvorak, because now he gets the 4th, 5th defenseman instead of the number 1 shutdown guy. So I love what the Coyotes have right now. They've become really a deep team, and especially when they get Oliver back.
Yeah, Maddie, let's keep going with that. Some of these new guys that the Coyotes signed, not necessarily stealing headlines across the league when they signed them, but they have plugged in really nicely with what Rick Tocchet's trying to do.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the Coyote way. They're this is not a team of superstars. It's a bunch of guys that play really well together, right? So I think it fits in well. Tyler Pitlick, when they were ramping up prior to the season, I'm thinking this guy can skate. He's got a good shot. You look at his numbers from Philadelphia. He was better in terms of what he produced point-wise than you would think. I think he's been good. I think Johan Larsson finally showed us something in one of those games in St. Louis. He had been quiet. I don't know if I was trying to figure out if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But when he stepped up and he fought Schenn and kind of gave the team a lift, and he's been – he's good in the faceoff circle, I believe, in that same game a couple of games ago. So all the little moves that they've done have made him a little grittier and a little harder to play against. And, yeah, they're not huge names or anything, but hockey is the consummate team game, right? All the 3 of you that have played this game, it's not necessarily the superstar. It's where your depth is and what guys are willing to do. And it's been fun to watch that as well.
Yeah, Lyndsey, one of the things that has really stood out this season, it's been this way really the last couple seasons, but especially this year, feels like when Rick Tocchet asks for something in post game, his guys go out there and do it the next game. They really seem tuned into what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just really buying into, his process. He talks about it all the time, right? Like trust the process, buy into the process. And I think that the guys are just finally doing that, and they're starting to see, wow, when we all kind of fit our role and play our role to the best of our ability, good things happen on the ice. And I think it's getting some guys who probably were, and this is on any elite team, right? They go from being, the superstars in their hometowns and on their junior teams, and now all of a sudden, they're maybe not the superstar on the ice, and it takes a little time to adjust and accept that you're going to have to win games a little differently than you were used to before. And I think I think we're just seeing a lot more buy-in this year from some of those younger guys than we maybe saw in previous years.
Biz, one of the things you and I talked about with Shane Doan a couple of weeks ago was that net front presence and just going there, being willing to get hit with a puck or, do whatever, get cross-checked out of the way by the opposing team's defense. But what have you seen in that regard from the Coyotes this year? It does feel like they have more guys willing to stand in front of the opposing goalie.
Yeah. It's been progressively getting better as this season has went on. Obviously, a little bit as far as getting shots through and then even having guys there. But I guess overall, not only just that, but they've been finding different ways to score, whether it's special teams, off the rush, and to me that's been the biggest improvement as far as getting consistent offense. I would say over the last couple of years, we would go games where we might have 4 or 5. But we might also, go a few without scoring. I mean, we did see it at one point this year, and it seems as if though they have addressed it. I want to say 16 goals in the prior 5 games, either going into last game or including last game. But it's just nice to see, and mixed in with the goaltending that they have. I mean, that's going to win you some games. But, I still think there is room for improvement there. But, ultimately it's, there's no right answer. It's just how are you going to get the thing to the back of the net? But if I had to pick out one guy, it would definitely be Christian Dvorak. And what has stood out is it's not necessarily always getting in front of the goalie's eyes, but also the high tips, changing up the types of looks and angles that it is coming from. But so that's pretty much all I got for that.
And I've got the word on those retro jerseys. The Coyotes are going to wear them the next 5 home Saturday games. So get used to that.
Is this just
Biz, yes, I just talked to the whole team. Biz has the captain's jersey though, so I don't know what all of
I stole it from Donor's Ranch.
Hey, speaking of Donor, guys, I just wanted to bring up something too that I think we haven't talked a lot about, is the fact that just having Shane Doan, like, don't you guys feel like it raises the level of all the players on the ice? They know he was the best Coyote to ever play here, and now he's sitting in the stands. He's watching them practice. He's breaking down their videos to a certain extent. He's having conversations with them at the rink, like, hey, Krauser, like, keep working, keep battling. Keller, like, I think it means way more than people really realize how important it is to have a culture of alumni around. I mean, we have Biss and me and Lyndsey up there in the stands, which that's a hammer in itself. But Shane Doan's a whole other level when you got him watching.
Well, and Asher, he's played with a lot of these guys too. I mean, I know there's a lot of new faces, but Doan, it's not like Doan retired forever ago. He's played with guys. I remember talking to him after he retired, and I asked him which player on the team he felt like was most like him at a very young age, and he said Lawson Krause. So he has that connection with a lot of these guys.
Well, and Biss, I was gonna say, like, when you played in Pittsburgh and when I played in St. Louis, I mean, you'd look up in the stands and you'd see, Mario Lemieux or, like Bob Plager and Al McInnes watching practice. You just got a little extra jump in your step because they were there watching,
Yeah, and Nash, I think you kind of alluded to it too. As it's like it also is like a different like culture of younger player where I think you have to speak to them a little bit differently. And we just had Chris Thorburn on our podcast, and he was talking about he'd love to get in a role because when he was coming up through the minors, he wished, and as a young guy, he wished he had guys who could come up or he could talk to in order to like figure out maybe where he needs to transform his game and like what are you seeing? Because Lyndsey, you touched on it earlier in this podcast, is like a lot of these people came out of junior and they were always the guy. All of a sudden you got to fill into these different types of roles, and sometimes that's hard for guys to adjust, and they just genuinely can't comprehend it or understand. And given with all the pressure and things that coaches are going through, they don't necessarily have that one-on-one time to give every guy and a lot of it. So having more people like that around, especially with the credibility of Shane Doan to talk to, it just helps. Because like even when I was a player with the Coyotes, there were times that Doan would come talk to me for 30 minutes because he knew I was frustrated because I was a healthy scratch 10 games in a row, and stick with it. And I know it's funny to joke about that, but also like other conversations that need to be had, whether it's penalty kill or physicality, or maybe, hey, I know you want to try these things, but I think it's going to better the team if you maybe just keep things a little bit more simpler and then add things to your bag in other areas. So I couldn't agree.
And like when you're not a coach, right? Like I think of Barrett Hayden right now is a perfect example that he would lean, and Shane would go to a guy like that. And be like, I know you're not playing as much as you want. You're not getting the power play time. Don't get frustrated. Stick with it. Maybe go out there and bang a couple guys and get into it physically and it's not coming from a coach, right? Because it's very different when it is.
I couldn't agree more. And then there's also you're not as timid about what you might say back to be used against you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not to say that would happen, but it's just I couldn't agree more, Nasher, with the point.
Peter, I mean, what the fans here, what Shane Doan means to them too. I mean, the listeners, the fans that are at the games, just Coyotes fans watching on TV, just to have Shane Doan associated with the organization again, it feels right.
Well, it does. It's great to have Shane back, and just all the things that Nasher and Biz were just talking about. And I mean, Shane Doan, when you look at him, you see it one word, and that's respect. If you're a fan, you respect the person that he is and how he played. If you're a player or a coach, same thing. You can't, be around Shane Doan and not respect who he is, how he's lived his life, how he continues to live his life, and what he's accomplished both on the ice and now in retirement off of the ice. So, I mean, it certainly is just a tremendous, tremendous thing for Shane to be back in this organization where he belongs. And I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of success ahead for him and the Coyotes, and he'll touch this organization in so many different ways.
I think this is probably a good place to wrap up talking about Shane Doan. The first quarter of the season, the team has looked good, and thus, if anybody has anything they want to still talk about here, but otherwise I think we can wrap it up. All right. Well, for Tyson Nash, for Matt McConnell, for Lyndsey Fry, for Bob Heethuis, for Paul Bissonnette, I'm Luke Lapinski. Thanks for listening to the Coyotes Hot Stove Podcast.